Fantasia, you proved the point with that performance tonight why we are critical of people who just sing well, because there was something magical about what you just did.
Now we turn to that sad story involving former American Idol winner Fantasia Barrino. She was rushed to the hospital following an overdose.
I did meet him in the T-Mobile store. He doesn't have 4 kids, he has 2 kids. And no, I did not break up his home. He's just a friend. I don't know if his home, what happened in his home, but he's been not with his wife. But of course, you know, they took the story and they said I was a homewrecker.
You think you know Fantasia's story, but the truth is even more heartbreaking. From the moment she won American Idol at just 19, Fantasia Barrino became a household name, celebrated for her raw voice, emotional performances, and underdog triumph. But behind the applause and chart-topping singles was a young woman facing pressures few could understand. The world saw the glamour, but they didn't see the contracts she didn't fully understand, the financial struggles that followed, or the relentless public scrutiny that came with overnight fame. They didn't see the moments when she felt utterly alone, trying to balance single motherhood with a career in an industry that often chews up young black artists and spits them out. Fantasia's journey has been one of survival, through betrayal, heartbreak, and personal battles that nearly cost her everything. But through it all, her voice, her truth, and her spirit have endured. This is the real story of Fantasia Barrino, the one they never wanted you to hear.
So there's a rumor on the internet that you are now dating a married man who has 4 kids and he's from your area, a real estate agent that you supposedly have met in the T-Mobile store.
It was August 9th, 2010. The night Fantasia Barrino almost didn't make it. After years of battling financial instability, personal heartbreak, and relentless media pressure, Fantasia reached her breaking point. Just days earlier, tabloids had exploded with stories about her alleged relationship with a married man. She was being publicly shamed, torn apart online and in the press. Behind closed doors, she was facing mounting debts, legal pressures, and the constant grind of trying to maintain a career under the harsh spotlight of fame.
I did meet him in the T-Mobile store. He doesn't have 4 kids, he has 2 kids. And no, I did not break up his home. He's just a friend. I don't know if his home, what happened in his home, but he's been not with his wife. But of course, you know, they took the story and they said I was a homewrecker.
That night, overwhelmed and emotionally exhausted, Fantasia took a bottle of aspirin and sleeping pills. In what she later described as a desperate moment of hopelessness, she slipped into unconsciousness. It was her manager and a close friend who found her in time. They called 911, a call that would soon become public knowledge, thrusting Fantasia's most vulnerable moment into headlines across the country. The media response was swift and brutal. Gossip sites and news outlets ran sensational headlines, speculating on Fantasia's mental state and questioning her character. But behind the scenes, the truth was far more painful and human. Fantasia had been silently carrying the weight of fame, single motherhood, and the scars of a childhood marked by poverty and trauma. That night wasn't about scandal, it was about survival. For Fantasia, waking up in the hospital was the start of a long, painful road toward healing. The public may have moved on quickly, but the scars of that night would stay with her. It was a harsh lesson about the price of fame, and a reminder that even the strongest voices can crack under unbearable pressure.
He's strumming my pain with his finger.
Winning American Idol should have been the start of a fairy tale. For Fantasia Barrino, it was a life-changing moment, one that catapulted her from a struggling single mother to a national superstar overnight. But beneath the confetti and recording contracts, she was thrust into an industry she wasn't prepared to navigate. Fantasia was young, inexperienced, and had no real understanding of the legal or financial systems that now controlled her career. The support she needed, strong management, financial education, legal protection, was missing from the start. Instead, she was quickly surrounded by agents and lawyers more interested in what they could take than in protecting her interests. Predatory contracts drained her earnings, and deals were signed without her full understanding of what they meant. Before long, the money that should have secured her future was slipping away faster than she could make it. And yet, the industry pressure only intensified. Once the crown of American Idol faded, Fantasia was expected to constantly prove herself, to deliver hits, fill stadiums, and maintain the perfect image. Any misstep was magnified, and the demands never stopped. The relentless grind left her physically and emotionally drained. Adding to this burden was the racism and respectability politics that still run deep in both the media and the music industry. Fantasia, a young black woman with a raw and powerful style rooted in gospel and soul, was often scrutinized in ways her white peers were not. She was expected to conform, to soften her voice, her image, and her story to fit a mold that industry gatekeepers deemed more marketable. Every choice she made was judged through a harsher lens. All of this, the exploitation, the unrealistic expectations, the double standards, took a heavy toll. Fantasia had been handed a platform, but not the tools to protect herself within it. And as the pressures built, cracks began to form beneath the surface of her rising star, the mold they tried to break her into. From the beginning, Fantasia's voice was her power, raw, soulful, and rooted in gospel traditions that came straight from her upbringing. But as soon as the American Idol cameras stopped rolling and the record deals were signed, the industry began trying to reshape her. Executives and publicists pushed for a more polished, commercial version of Fantasia, one they believed would sell better to mainstream audiences. The message was clear: her authentic sound and unfiltered personality needed to be toned down. Fantasia was told to smooth out her gospel runs, to avoid being too church, and to adopt a more conventional R&B pop style. They wanted sleek ballads and radio-friendly hooks, not the raw emotional performances that had won over millions of fans in the first place. This constant pressure to fit a mold she didn't believe in led to tension behind the scenes. Fantasia clashed with label executives and PR teams who didn't understand or didn't value the deep connection she had to her musical roots. These battles weren't just about sound, they were about identity. Fantasia felt caught between staying true to herself and trying to meet the expectations of an industry that often sidelines artists who don't conform. The struggle took a toll on her creatively and emotionally, and at times, it stalled her career momentum. Projects were delayed, marketing campaigns felt inauthentic, and the disconnect between Fantasia's true artistry and the image being packaged to the public became painfully clear. Yet through it all, Fantasia kept fighting to reclaim her voice. Even as the industry tried to mold her into something she wasn't, her authenticity and her refusal to be silenced would ultimately become one of her greatest strengths.
Now we turn to that sad story involving former American Idol winner Fantasia Barrino. She was rushed to the hospital following an overdose.
Suicide attempt they tried to bury. When news of Fantasia's overdose broke in August 2010, the media wasted no time spinning the story. Headlines sensationalized the incident, focusing more on scandal than the reality of her pain. Overnight, Fantasia's most vulnerable moment became tabloid fodder. Behind the scenes, her management and PR team scrambled into damage control. Rather than addressing the deeper issues Fantasia was facing, their priority became protecting her public image, crafting statements to downplay the severity of the incident and shift the conversation away from her mental health crisis. For Fantasia, this approach added a new layer of trauma. What she needed was compassion, support, and space to heal. Instead, her most personal struggle was treated like a PR obstacle. The focus wasn't on her recovery, but on salvaging her career. Interviews were carefully scripted, appearances tightly controlled. Fantasia later shared that during this time, she often felt like a product being managed, not a person in crisis. The disconnect between her public and private healing was stark. In the public eye, she was expected to bounce back quickly, to smile and perform as though nothing had happened. Privately, she was still grappling with depression, shame, and the lingering emotional wounds of that night. The pressure to present a polished front only deepened her internal struggle. It would take years for Fantasia to fully reclaim her story, to speak openly about what happened, and to advocate for mental health awareness. The suicide attempt they tried to bury ultimately became a turning point in her life, one that forced her to find strength not just as a performer, but as a survivor. What happened to Fantasia wasn't just an isolated incident. It was part of a much broader pattern in the music industry, one that has repeatedly exploited young Black women artists. Time and time again, the industry elevates them to stardom with little real support, only to tear them down when they struggle under the weight of fame. Fantasia's story echoes those of artists like Whitney Houston, Lauryn Hill, and more recently, artists like Summer Walker and Normani. Women praised for their talent, but often left unprotected and unprepared for the harsh realities of the spotlight. The cycle is all too familiar. Young Black women are overworked and pushed to constantly deliver, often under contracts that strip them of creative and financial control. When they inevitably hit breaking points, whether through exhaustion, personal crises, or mental health struggles, the response is rarely compassion. Instead, they face public shaming, with the media quick to brand them as unstable, ungrateful, or difficult. And when they no longer fit the profitable image the industry wants, they are often abandoned altogether. Fantasia's experience fits squarely into this pattern. From the moment she won American Idol, the industry tried to mold her, control her, and profit from her, all without giving her the tools or support she needed to navigate fame. When she struggled, instead of being helped, she was judged and discarded. Her story is a stark reminder that the system is still deeply flawed, and that until these patterns are called out and changed, more young artists will continue to suffer the same fate.
Baby, when I see you, let's take it there.
Through it all, the fame, the heartbreak, the media firestorms, Fantasia Barrino refused to be silenced. In the years following her overdose, she made a powerful comeback, not just as an artist, but as a woman in full control of her voice and her story. She began releasing music on her own terms, embracing an independent approach that allowed her to reconnect with the raw, gospel-infused sound that first defined her. Her acting career flourished as well, with standout performances on Broadway in The Color Purple, where critics praised her emotional depth and authenticity. Fantasia also became an outspoken advocate for mental health and resilience, openly discussing her struggles in interviews and encouraging others to seek help when they need it. No longer bound by industry expectations, she uses her platform to shine a light on the pressures that young artists face, especially Black women who are so often exploited and discarded. Today, Fantasia's life is one of balance and purpose. She continues to perform and record music, but she also prioritizes her family, her faith, and her well-being. She speaks candidly about the lessons she's learned, about protecting your peace, knowing your worth, and standing tall in an industry that often tries to break you down. Fantasia Barrino's story is more than just a tale of survival. It's a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of speaking truth to power, and the need for a music industry that truly supports and protects its artists. Hers is a voice they couldn't silence, and one that continues to inspire.